A newly released undercover video.
So generally, then we just take 4 steps and, do the rest.
David Daleiden conducts a shocking conversation describing late-term abortion and the alleged sale of baby body parts. Going it alone, the UK officially sets Brexit into place, ending a 44-year partnership. Protecting civilians, the Pope demands action in Iraq. And Vivat Jesu! We celebrate a major milestone for the Knights of Columbus. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, March 29th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A new undercover video shows an abortion provider's graphic description of late-term abortions and methods to procure intact fetuses. The group behind the video, the Center for Medical Progress, accuses the abortionist of harvesting body parts and possibly covering up infanticide. The release comes as its founder, David Daleiden, faces more than a dozen new felony charges in California for invasion of privacy. It's based on his release of the undercover videos in 2015. We want to warn you that this new video we are about to show you may be disturbing.
Part of the issue is it's not a matter of how I feel about it coming out intact, but I got to worry about my staff and people's feelings about it coming out looking like a baby.
A new secretly recorded video between the Center for Medical Progress's David Daleiden and Dr. Deshaun Taylor, an abortion provider in Arizona and the former medical director for Planned Parenthood Arizona.
Arizona is so conservative. I just don't even want to send a 4 fetus for cremation or any of that. We have the people who do our paperwork for the fetal death certificates. They email us calling them babies. Baby this, baby that, baby so-and-so. And I'm like, that's creepy.
In this clip, Dr. Taylor describes the force needed when performing a DIG, a method of abortion that involves injecting a fetus with the drug digoxin.
But I have to tell you anecdotally, my biceps appreciate when the DIG works.
Really? It's in the biceps when you're doing a D&E?
It does not take me any longer to complete the procedure, but it takes more force.
Dr. Taylor explains what happens if a baby is born alive.
In Arizona, if the fetus comes out with any signs of life, we're supposed to transport it.
At any gestational age?
Any gestational age.
Is there any standard procedure for verifying signs of life?
Well, the thing is,
that doesn't go in a chart.
I mean, the key is you need to pay attention to who's in the room, right? And because the thing is, the law states you're not supposed to do any maneuvers after the fact to try to cause demise. So it's really tricky.
In 2015, the Center for Medical Progress released undercover videos alleging Planned Parenthood illegally sold the body parts of aborted babies for profit. Those videos reignited a national abortion debate and increased congressional heat against Planned Parenthood that has yet to subside. As far as this video, we reached out to Dr. Taylor today, but she declined to comment. Now, coming up later in the broadcast, we will have an exclusive TV interview with David Daleiden about why he believes criminal charges should be brought against Planned Parenthood. President Donald Trump is remaining firm in his support for defunding Planned Parenthood. The White House tells EWTN News Nightly that President Trump is firmly pro-life. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee reports from the White House. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. President Trump has not commented on this specific video, but the White House tells us today that the president is, quote, committed to ensuring our taxpayer funds do not fund abortions through Planned Parenthood. In 2015, when the first undercover videos were released alleging illegal activity by Planned Parenthood, President Trump called it a disgrace and said he'd vote to defund the group. The issue of abortion continued to come up on the campaign trail. At the Las Vegas debate against Democratic rival Hillary Clinton in October, he graphically described partial birth abortions.
I think it's terrible. If you go with what Hillary is saying, in the 9th month, you can take the baby and rip the baby out of the womb of the mother. just prior to the birth of the baby.
As president, Trump supported pro-life inclusions in the failed GOP House bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. He blamed the House Freedom Caucus, a Republican coalition that's pro-life. The White House said Monday Trump does not back the nation's largest abortion provider.
I think that he's made very clear what his position is on Planned Parenthood.
And just this month, the administration proposed that Planned Parenthood stop providing abortions. In return, the group's federal funding would be preserved and possibly even increased. Planned Parenthood flatly refused to consider the offer. Today's video release comes at the same time as a concentrated effort by Planned Parenthood to drum up support here in Washington. They're pushing Americans to contact their congressman to back funding for things like contraceptives. Pro-life groups are responding on social media. Lauren?
Wyatt, I also understand President Trump met with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie today, and they brought up the issue of life. What did they discuss?
Yes, Lauren, Governor Christie was here at the White House. He and the president talked about combating opioid addiction. And interestingly, the governor tied that issue to life, saying that he and the president are both pro-life, not just in the 9 months in the womb, but for the whole life. He went on to say every life is an individual gift from God and is precious. Lauren?
Wyatt Goolsbee reporting at the White House. Thank you, Wyatt. Republican lawmakers in Iowa are backing legislation to ban abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected. If the so-called heartbeat bill is enacted, it would be the strictest ban in the country. Iowa's governor hasn't said whether or not he will sign the bill if it passes. The Senate Intelligence Committee chairman says the panel's challenge is to answer for Americans whether President Donald Trump was directly involved in Russia's meddling in the 2016 election. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi joins us more on the investigation. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. Senator Richard Burr, Republican of North Carolina, is calling the probe one of the biggest he's seen since being elected to Congress back in 1994. The stakes are high for his panel's investigation following controversy over the House's probe into Russia. Democrats demand House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes step aside from the Russian investigation.
I like Chairman Nunes. He's led our committee in a bipartisan way, but for the sake of the independence of this committee and its investigation into Russia, he should step aside for the Russia part of the investigation because we need him to be credible when it comes to the other non-Russia work.
Nunes is having none of it.
I don't think that's any different politics than they're normally to, which is fine. I mean, you guys know how this place is.
The California Republican served on President Trump's transition team. He says he met with a secret source on White House grounds to review classified information. He says it showed Trump associates' communications had been captured in incidental surveillance of foreigners. Republicans defend their colleague for sharing that information with the president.
We have no idea it has anything to do with Russia. In fact, Devin has said it had absolutely nothing to do with Russia. So if the new rule is that the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee cannot share information with the commander-in-chief, we're in a whole new world.
Across the Capitol, the Senate Intelligence Committee is meeting behind closed doors, where Republicans are mum on the House investigation.
I'm in the Senate, not the House.
But this Senate Democrat says he's worried about the House investigation and promises a bipartisan probe in their chamber.
It'll be done right.
Tomorrow, you'll have the chance to see what's been playing out confidentially behind closed doors. That's when the Senate panel is holding its first public hearing on the issue. Lauren?
Thank you, Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. A scary moment for police at the Capitol building when a woman described as erratic and aggressive drove a vehicle into a police cruiser. Shots were fired during the arrest attempt, but police say the incident is not related to terrorism. The woman was taken into custody and no one was injured. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. The United Kingdom starts the breakup process from the European Union. The government delivered a formal 6-page letter today triggering the divorce. The EU's leader didn't try to hide what he thinks about it.
Most Europeans, including almost half the British voters, wish that we would stay together, not drift apart. As for me, I will not pretend that that I'm happy today.
Britain and the EU have 2 years to come up with rules, regulations, and agreements regarding Brexit. The UK joined the EU 44 years ago. Authorities have identified the bodies of 2 UN experts missing in the Democratic Republic of Congo since earlier this month. American Michael Sharp and Swedish national Zaida Catalan had been investigating large-scale human rights violations in the region. Violence at a Mexican prison leaves 2 inmates dead and 13 injured. It started last night after inmates complained about the lack of food and water. Relatives protesting outside also demanded better living conditions for the prisoners. The bishop of a local diocese near the prison says Mexico urgently needs prison reform. The UN says at least 300 people have been killed in Mosul, Iraq since mid-February. It comes as the president says Iraqi forces are fighting ISIS like never before. Forces are advancing on ISIS in the western part of Mosul. The campaign to stop the terror group from its last stronghold in Iraq has intensified in recent weeks. Today at the Vatican, Pope Francis made an appeal for help to protect civilians caught in the crossfire. Vatican correspondent Mary Shovlin joins us from Rome. Mary, what did the Holy Father say today?
Lauren, he expressed his deep pain for the victims of the bloody conflict in Iraq and appealed to everyone involved to make every possible effort to protect civilians. He called this an imperative which is urgent and needs to be done quickly. Francis said he was particularly concerned about the Iraqis who are trapped in the northern city of Mosul and fighting taking place at the moment, as well as all those who have been displaced because of the war. He said he's united to them in their suffering. He's united to them in prayer.
Before his weekly audience, I know that he met with a group of Iraqis. What was the meeting about? What did they discuss?
He met with members of a delegation from the Iraqi supervisory boards who are in Rome to meet with the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue. Representatives from the Shiites, Sunnis, Christians, Yazidis, Sabaeans, Mandaeans community, all these communities in Iraq. And the Pope told them, you know, we're all brothers. And where there's brotherhood, there's peace, he said. We're all children of the Lord. And he pointed to our common father in faith, Abraham, from the Old Testament, encouraged them in their dialogue this week. He said the dialogue that you're engaged in is a true road to peace.
Did he give an outline to them on how to move forward?
Lauren, I think he's encouraging them to pursue a path of unity with respect for diversity. He said that time and again. And he called that diversity today, he called it a mosaic, which represents a richness in the Iraqi culture. And he also asked them to pray for reconciliation and harmony between all of these ethnic groups that make up the population there.
Thank you so much, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you.
You can read more about the Pope's appeal for peace by going to our news partner, CatholicNewsAgency.com. Up next, my exclusive one-on-one interview with David Daleiden. We discuss his new undercover video and what it reveals about the abortion industry. As we mentioned earlier in the program, the Center for Medical Progress's explosive undercover video graphically describes late-term abortion. David Daleiden, the man who captured that undercover video, joins us now from our studio in Orange County, California. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Lauren, it's great to be back on with you.
Tell me why you are releasing this new video today. What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, I think that the public and the public's elected representatives need to be reminded of the truly barbaric nature of Planned Parenthood's late-term abortion business, baby body part selling business, and the public debate at this really critical time when we're on the cusp of forcing taxpayers to subsidize the biggest monster abortion business in the country. That public debate needs to be fully informed. And so videotapes like this we're going to continue releasing in the coming weeks here.
As you were listening to Dr. Taylor talking about late-term abortion, what was going through your mind?
You know, I have to say that conversation at a very swanky Planned Parenthood networking reception was one of the most disturbing conversations that we had early on during the course of the investigative project. When she said that she feels it in her biceps when she's doing a dismemberment abortion with forceps on a late-term baby, I almost dropped my wine when I heard that. And I'd already heard a lot of stuff at that point, but that was shocking to me.
The other piece of that was that it seems, at least you're saying in your press release, that you believe that she's committed infanticide. Do you have any proof of that?
Well, I think it's really, I think it should be troubling to everyone, and I think it's prima facie evidence for law enforcement when you ask a late-term abortion doctor who does procedures on 5- and 6-month-old healthy, viable children, you ask her, is there a standard procedure for verifying the signs of life in the baby if it comes out in one piece, which is what you're supposed to do under the law? And her response is to laugh and say, you know, the key is you need to pay attention to who else is in the room with you when that happens. That's not, those aren't the words of someone who's following the law. Those are the words of someone who's covering up something that's really, really grave, and it could be infanticide.
Now, do you believe that it's coincidence that today that you were charged in California with 15 felonies? Did you know those those charges were coming?
No, you know, the charges are really bogus in a lot of ways because, you know, the charges are all based on the California recording law, which is not triggered and isn't an issue so long as the conversations that are being taped are public conversations happening out in the open in a public area, which every last videotape that's referenced in the Attorney General's complaint was. So, so we weren't expecting them to file such a weak case. A case that probably won't survive a couple of motions to dismiss. But I do think in a broad sense, I don't think it's a coincidence that when Planned Parenthood really has their head on the chopping block here with the new administration, with a pro-life Congress that has the votes and can defund them pretty imminently here with the reconciliation bill that a lot of people are talking about, I don't think it's a coincidence that Planned Parenthood is very, very desperate right now, and they're going to be lashing out in any direction that they can and in every direction that they can because they are faced with imminent extinction.
After the last round of videos were released, there was a House Select Committee put together, and they found some of those Planned Parenthood affiliates. They sent these cases to the FBI and to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. Is that your goal, criminal prosecution?
Absolutely. Planned Parenthood is not above the law. The kinds of atrocities against humanity that they have been committing in their late-term abortion and baby parts business over the past decade and longer are horrific. Americans are shocked and horrified by it. We don't want our tax dollars to contribute to something like that. And Planned Parenthood needs to be held accountable to the law like any other organization. The fact that they have been selling baby body parts for profit needs to be prosecuted on a federal level to the full extent of the law.
But they say
and the evidence is all there in the very good investigative work done over the past year by the House Select Investigative Panel in an over 2,000-page report with exhibits and documentation, and also the report by the Senate Judiciary Committee.
But I think other people would say that there is not that proof yet, and there have been no charges. And I think that you are leading the fight in that battle, but wouldn't you agree that you're not quite there yet?
No, we won't be there yet. Justice won't be served until Planned Parenthood is indicted for their criminal role in the harvesting and trafficking of baby body parts for profit, for the way that they have commodified the little hearts and lungs and livers and brains of our unborn brothers and sisters. The evidence is there. The congressional investigations got the contracts with companies like STEM Express and Advanced Bioscience Resources. They got the invoices. Now, this is very interesting. They haven't released the invoices, so that's something that they ought to do because the public has a right to know. The actual invoices that Planned Parenthood would fill out and send to their business partners like STEM Express, charging per body part, per baby body part that was harvested. Those documents would be the foundation of a federal criminal case against Planned Parenthood, and they need to come to light for all the world to see.
Before I let you go, David, there have been charges. You have been accused of doctoring videos, doctoring the videos that you released in 2015. And I want you to go on the record and say, on this case, did you or did you not doctor those videos?
I will go on the record, the video camera doesn't lie. And if Planned Parenthood is going to try to evade any kind of public scrutiny by relying on that tired old talking point, then the challenge to Planned Parenthood today is if there's anything that's inaccurate about my videotapes, if they want to try to say that these are not Planned Parenthood doctors, these are not Planned Parenthood executives who are featured on those tapes, then let those individuals come forward. Put their Senior Director of Medical Services, Deborah Nucatola, on CNN. Put them on Fox News. Put them out in public. Let them come forward and say that is not my face, that is not my image, that is not my voice. Let them say that those are not their words captured on video camera for all of history to see, saying these things that the public is so horrified about and that we've all been so shocked by. Planned Parenthood can't prove that. The video camera doesn't lie. These are their own people, their own leadership, in their own words, and they need to be held accountable for it.
David Daleiden, project lead for the Center for Medical Progress. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lauren.
A federal appeals court today barred Daleiden's group from releasing additional undercover videos. Coming up, President Trump's immigration order generates an intense legal battle. What happens next? And Melania Trump makes a high-profile appearance.
I'm deeply humbled to be here today to honor these 12 remarkable and inspirational women.
How the First Lady is honoring women of courage. A federal judge in Hawaii hears arguments today on whether or not to keep blocking President Trump's revised immigration order. Joining us now is John Malcolm, director of the Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation. So nice to see you.
Good to be with you, Lauren.
Today, the state of Hawaii and the Trump administration are in court on the president's travel ban. Is the outcome going to be the same as the one that we saw from the last executive order, meaning no travel ban?
Yeah, look, I think that's right. So this is an Obama-appointed judge, Derek Watson, who, after the revised executive order came out, said that there was a nationwide injunction to prevent it from going into effect. The Trump administration has asked the judge to limit the scope of that order to just Hawaii, but I don't expect that Judge Watson will change his ruling in any way, shape, or form.
Explain to me why someone in Hawaii, a judge sitting in Hawaii, can make law for the entire country.
Well, they do. They say that it's important that there be uniformity in the enforcement of our immigration laws. They believe that their ruling applies to throw out the entire executive order if he believes it's a violation of the Establishment Clause, violates the constitutional rights of these people who seek to enter into our country. But the Supreme Court would certainly help a lot if they were to give some better direction as to when a nationwide injunction is appropriate.
Texas State Attorney Ken Paxton came and sat right where you were sitting earlier this week, and he filed an amicus brief in support of the president's executive order. He was a guest, so let me show you what he had to say.
We're just hoping, we just want the argument out there that this needs to be based on federal law, not a new constitutional right given to people who don't live in our country, have never been here. They don't satisfy constitutional protection, and so we want to make sure the court gets it right.
He says he hopes. Is there any hope?
Sure. Look, there are going to be cases filed all around the country, and they're going to wend their way through the courts. So a Maryland judge issued a similar ruling to the judge in Hawaii. A Virginia judge has come out the other way, and General Paxson has filed a brief joined by 11 other states, plus the governor of Mississippi, supporting the Trump administration. That's been filed in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. So all of these cases are going to bubble their way up, and eventually they'll reach the Supreme Court.
Okay. E&E News is a news organization focused on energy and the environment. It reports that Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke said the border wall, we're switching now, a little immigration issue here, may have to be built in Mexico because of the Rio Grande and may not be as grand as President Trump describes. Now, Zinke's comments highlight the physical difficulties of building a wall along the border. What other challenges do you see?
Oh, look, so President Trump is attacking the immigration problem on a whole variety of fronts. Building the wall is one. Attorney General Sessions' announcement about federal funds for sanctuary cities is another. You know, I don't know about the difficulties of building a wall. I'm not an engineer, but I do expect that there are liberal activist groups that are going to come up with very creative ways to challenge all of these things in federal court.
Okay, thank you so much, John Malcolm, Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah.
First Lady Melania Trump takes to the public stage today, presenting Courage Awards to a dozen women from around the world.
Together, we must declare that the era of allowing their brutality against women and children is over, while affirming that the time for empowering women around the world is now.
The Secretary of State's International Women of Courage Award recognizes women who have shown courage and leadership while advocating for peace, justice, and human rights. That does it for us, for all of us here at EWTN News Nightly. To all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Thank you for joining us. We leave you honoring the Knights of Columbus on their 135th anniversary. It was on this day in 1882 that Father Michael McGivney founded the Knights at St. Mary's Parish in New Haven, Connecticut. They continue to serve around the world, and we also thank the Knights for supporting EWTN News Nightly. Good night, and God bless.